My dears, we are talking today about progress mapping for the kiddos. Um, P.S. I'm dressed rather casually today because I am dressed to go to bar class. If any of you have been following along, you know that I've recently become fairly obsessed with the bar method. And so I'm dressed hours before class. And I thought, well, that's fine because it actually reminds me of when I was 5, 6, 7 years old and I was first learning how to swim. I joined a swim team and I would be so excited about going to practice that I would put my bathing suit on, not clothes, mind you, just the suit. And then I would put my cap on and have my goggles and be like ready to go when I was still at home on the way to swim practice. So that's kind of how I feel about bar. Anyhow, we are talking about how to use progress maps with kids. This is a conversation that I've had with a number of you, frankly, since we started Mapping Progress. It's going to be almost 2 years ago now. And a number of you that have started using them with your kids already. So what I wanted to do was to create a guide for those of you that have been interested in the idea and are looking for ways to get started. And for those of you that have already started on your own, wanted to provide you with some additional tips, recommendations, ideas for how you can have these be most effective with your kids. Okay, so just to kind of revisit the basics of progress mapping, the whole idea of the progress map is to have a visual that breaks down the larger goal into smaller pieces. In this case, literally small swirls. And each of those swirls represents an action that needs to be taken to reach the goal. And I think kids respond really well to this logic because they can see it. Certainly pictures help when we are, trying to teach things to kids and have them understand concepts. And they seem to pick up on the idea pretty quickly and get excited because then they get to color in a swirl once they have taken the action. So that's the really key part, is to help them take an abstract big idea and translate it into something that is very tangible, doable, and something that they can take action on right away. Certainly, we know that kids are really into instant gratification a lot these days. So this can be very motivating in terms of getting them into action right away. So what we need to know when we're presenting this idea to kids is what those swirls will represent, what each of those next right steps, those individual actions. I'm holding my hands like this is a swirl, like it's a thing in my hand. It's not, but I'm still doing that with my hand. Anyhow, figuring out what their next right step is and what that swirl is going to mean can be a little bit tricky. So I want to reiterate how important it is to choose a meaning for each of the swirls that represents an action that the kid can confidently take. This is really, really important. It's important for adults too, but certainly for kids. They need to feel successful. They need to feel like they are getting the hang of it. And then we can always, work them up to maybe some larger tasks or whatever. We don't really need to worry about that right now. Okay. It's just a matter of getting them introduced to the idea so they understand the concept, and then getting them to action right away so they can start practicing. So I'm going to go through in just a few minutes 3 different examples of ways that you can use the maps with kids, from those that are young, say under the age of 5, school age children, even up through teenagers and even college students. So really important to get clear on what the swirls mean, have each swirl be something that the kid can do, that they know they can do, they believe they can do it. We don't want to get them stuck or feeling anxious or afraid of taking action. We need to start exactly where they are and come up with a next right step that swirl represents that they can confidently do. And when they take that step, then they get to color in the swirl and they start to feel victorious and they're excited and they feel proud of themselves. And we get to celebrate that, and the yay, I used to teach swimming lessons to kids and started with 4-year-olds and teaching them how to float. And every single thing they did that was consistent with what we wanted them to do, we celebrated. We yayed. We, made a big deal of it. And that works in this context, actually. And so just having the progress map up in a place in your home where it can be seen by everyone, where it's something that they will be able to be visually reminded of on a day-to-day basis, so they're not, forgetting about things, or they can continue to feel proud about it. It can be a conversation piece. These are all important things for getting them familiar with the concept and into practice. So really important to celebrate those tiny victories. In each swirl, each action taken is a tiny victory. Sometimes I think our clever brain, that part of our brain that is resistant to anything new, the part of our brain that is suspicious of doing anything that is unfamiliar or has not yet been survived. Even if it is a very positive and fun activity, there can still be that fear and resistance to doing it. And clever brain can make up, thoughts and various stories about how there's so many swirls, how will we ever get it done? And look at all the swirls that I haven't colored in yet. So we want to stay focused on what can be done, what has been done, what has been colored in. And if you notice your child starting to vocalize those types of clever brain thoughts, be kind and supportive, and just direct them back to, I hear you. And the good news is we're going to take this one next right step at a time. We're just going to focus on our next swirl. Okay. So celebrate the ones that have been colored in and just have them focus on the next swirl, the next action that there is to be taken. And what often happens is that when they have the experience of feeling successful and they feel victorious and the actions have been taken, they do get to color in, then they get more excited and motivated to take the next action because they see their progress, they see a progression, and they get practice and start to develop more confidence in their capabilities of continuing the more that they do it. Does that make sense? Okay. So I said that I would walk you through 3 different types of goals and ways to use the progress maps. I designed this guide to be something that would help you get started and have you practicing it. So what I did was I created a 10 Swirl Hearts sheet here. And you can see that this is the 10 Swirl Heart map. Some of you, that may be a familiar shape. It is one that I use often to get people started on progress mapping because 10 swirls, 10 actions tends not to be too overwhelming. And the way that I've created in this guide is that I've put it on a sheet with the numbers 1 through 10. Hopefully you can see that. And it allows for some space for you just to write out what each of these swirls are going to mean, what each of the next right steps are. And, this is not fancy. It's intentionally not supposed to be fancy. I don't want you to feel precious about this. Like, it's so pretty, I don't want to screw it up or draw on it. Sometimes that can be a reaction when people get the maps on either a fancy print or a canvas, certainly. So this is very intentional to have it be something that you can print out again and again. You can screw it up if you want to. I don't believe that we can really screw it up, but it's important that you have freedom and permission to have this be a practice and have it be a little bit messy. That's totally fine. Okay? So 3 ways that we can use this particular sheet in practice and helping your kids get started with progress mapping. The first is to simply practice something for 10 days. I imagine that whatever age your child is, there's some sort of habit that you're trying to have them create, or some sort of positive behavior. Maybe it's as simple as just brushing their teeth. Maybe it's practicing piano. Maybe it's clearing the dishes from the table. Maybe it's feeding the pet. Whatever those types of things are that you want your child to get in the practice of doing, this is a really good way to start. So in the case of developing a habit, like the practicing piano, like the brushing teeth and whatever, I would recommend that you write out the date. So you've got 10 slots for the 10 swirls. And if it's a habit, particularly something that is happening once a day, just write in the date so that they can see, and you can kind of go along and be checking these things off. So you're setting the expectation of what's ahead, what it is that they're going to be doing. It's 10 days. So even for young children, it still is an achievable goal, certainly. And like I said, you can always print this out again and, use it for whatever you need to get them practicing. And then once they get the hang of it, then you can look at other designs and swirl counts and so forth. And that's great. But this is a really good way to just get in the practice of the habit, them taking the action, associating it with, okay, great, now I get to color in the swirl. That's the reward. And then they get to see it. So you are putting this here somewhere where they can really see it. Oh, thanks, ma'am. So make sure that it is visible. Okay. And then the next thing that you can use this for, I know that a lot of parents want their kids to clean their room. And certainly there will be plenty of opportunities for your child to have a messy room that you want them to clean. So some ideas for using, again, this 10 swirl practice worksheet that comes in the guide, is to look at the specific tasks that you want them to complete, the actions that they need to take to clean their room. I mean, how often do we say, go clean your room, or how often were we told that growing up? And it seems to work much better when we can be very specific and have very clear direction for the kids in terms of what is there to do. So some ideas that I include in the guide are various next right steps that, when taken together, would result in a clean room. And these steps, there's 10 of them, so we can break them down into small pieces. That is the whole point. You can't have too much victory, frankly. You can't have too many opportunities for them to consciously choose to take an action, take that action, and then celebrate that action by coloring in a swirl. So some specific actions that you might have your kids take to clean their room would be putting away any food or drinks, returning any dirty dishes to the kitchen. Important point that I want to make here is that often when we are doing things like cleaning, it can be very easy to, especially for clever brain, to just add in a couple extra things like, oh, you're taking the food and drinks and dirty dishes from your room. Why don't you grab them? Why don't you do a sweep around the house? Or when you get to the kitchen, why don't you put them in the dishwasher? I would not encourage you to add things on. That can be a separate exercise. That could be a separate map even. But it's really important to not get distracted and just stay focused on what the next right step is and completing that. So then they can, put away their food and drinks, or, return the dirty dishes to the kitchen, and then they get to color in their swirl. Okay. And again, we're using this particular worksheet that I've created for you. So you could write in here, put the dirty dishes away or clean those up from your room, and then they get to do that and color in the first swirl. Then some other ideas are picking up clothes off the floor or furniture, putting away any clean laundry, putting any dirty clothes where they belong. You'll notice that those are 3 action steps that are all related to clothing. And again, we're breaking this down into very specific steps, not just go put your clothes away or something that's more general. It's really helpful to make it very specific and allow them opportunities to be, again, successful. That's the whole point, is that progress is a practice. It is a skill set. And I don't think most of us think of it that way. I think we tend to think more in terms of what we have to get done or the goals that we're trying to achieve. But it's like if you wanted to become a great cook, you would learn the skills of being able to chop, being able to, saute or braise something. I don't know. These are skills that you can combine and use in service of any type of goal or cuisine, if you will. Once you get the basics down and you know how to choose this, you know how to consciously take action, you know how to stay focused, motivated, and on track by using the progress maps, then you can apply that to anything. Okay? So, the third one that I've wanted to run through, this is intended for kids that are maybe a little bit older. Maybe they are doing a science project. Maybe they've got a book report. For those kids that get into high school, those can get a bit more complex, and they're tasked with being able to take a more significant, report or something that they're needing to deliver to their teacher that is, maybe weeks, if not months out. And how do we support them in thinking about what it is that needs to be done and making sure that they're taking action at the appropriate time and able to, get where it is that they need to go in terms of completing their assignment, having it ready on time, if not even a little bit early. Okay, so again, we're still using the 10 swirl worksheet here. And when you sit down with your kid and just kind of start talking through what it is that needs to happen, what kind of results are we creating here? So some ideas of what each of these swirls could mean. You can use this really to help plan out the project and get those initial phases done. So things like confirming the date when the project is due and exactly what needs to be turned in. You could write that in slot number 1, and they confirm the date that's due, what it is exactly that they have to turn in, and then they get to color in the swirl. Next one could be ask teacher any questions that need answers to get started. Maybe they feel like they can't take their first step because there are certain questions that are unresolved. Totally fine. You could write that in number 2. And I go through a few more, but the next one would be write a rough outline or plan in less than 30 minutes just to get the draft done. You can adjust these things to your child and their level of, wherever it is that they are and the complexity of the project. But it's really helping them understand the necessary skills to be able to take action on something else, so you can use this 10 Swirl Heart as a means to teach them how to prepare for a larger or ongoing goal. Okay, so in this guide, we've got 3 different ways to use this 10 Swirl worksheet. Certainly don't want to limit your creativity or imagination if you come up with other ideas. Again, this is a practice. One of the best things that you can do, truly, one of the best things that you can do for your child is make it okay for them to try and to take action and see what happens. Sometimes we can get real focused on doing it right, or this is the way that Amy said how to do it. This is what it is in the guide. We need to do it exactly this way. More than I would want you to do this right, I would want you to be present with your child and be there listening to them, hearing them, teaching them how to use this, and encouraging them along the way, encouraging them to be creative, to think of other ways they could use the map. The important thing is that they're taking action. That is when we learn, when we are in motion, when we are taking our next right step, when we're accomplishing that and getting to build a trust with ourselves that we are capable of doing bigger things, of reaching larger goals, that when we just stay focused on our next right step and we break things down into small enough pieces that each of those next right steps is absolutely something that we can confidently do, that logic ensures that we do reach that goal eventually. Okay? It's just a matter of being able to make those adjustments and sort of course correct as you go. So all of this is practice. It is messy. That's okay. Have fun with this. And once they get the hang of it and once they are excited about the idea, and, again, kids pick this up pretty quick and usually do get very excited about the idea, then you can look at other maps. And depending on what type of goals you might have for them, we do have maps that have 30 swirls. So maybe there's a daily goal that you have, or doing something for a month, for example. So 30 swirls is great for that. You can see behind me, this is the, I'm still figuring out how to turn my thumb. Anyhow, so what's behind me is the 365 swirl calendar. That might be one that's especially for maybe some of the older kids. Any sort of goal that they have to do something once a day, then they can color in their swirl and they can track it over a longer period of time. For those of you that are working with kids around savings and money related things, we have a number of maps that are 100 swirl. So if they have a savings goal, even say $100, a goal to be able to buy something they want or whatnot, then each of those swirls could represent $1 saved. So each time they receive money, they can be coloring in their progress map to reach their savings goal. Okay, so one last thing I'll say is that for the most part, as a rule, I encourage you to use progress maps that are in the download form, meaning it's a PDF that you purchase from mapyourprogress.com. You print it out. You can print it out on your home computer over and over again. And like I was saying earlier, giving kids permission and yourself permission to not have the map be so precious that you don't want to screw it up or not color it right or whatever. The downloads give you a lot more freedom to have it be messy and to have it be imperfect, and know that if you don't do it the way that you wanted to do it, you can always print out another one and begin again. There will be some cases, probably particularly with some of the older kids, maybe in middle school or high school, where having the fancier map or having the map even on canvas would actually motivate them more or would serve them more. I mean, maybe it's a bigger goal. Maybe they're saving up for a car. Maybe they have, a specific goal in terms of, like, let's say they're doing martial arts and they want to go up like another level in belt or something. I'm just thinking out loud here. But if it's something that is more prestigious or a bigger, longer term goal, there's just more like juice to it, then the map's printed on the fancy print. It's a museum quality archival paper. It's really beautifully done. That could be great. Or you could use a canvas. I'll give you an example of one that I'm using right now. This is my tuck map. As I mentioned at the top of the video, I am obsessed now with bar. And one of the things that we do in bar is we tuck our pelvis and tummy in. And so each one of these swirls represents a workout that I have completed. And I even wrote on the back here the days of the workouts and things like that. So, this can be a really great tool for a goal that seems, bigger. So this is for my first 100 workouts. Okay, so the idea is to use these tools coming from love, to take action coming from love, to celebrate every tiny victory. Even if it's tiny, it's still victory. And the more you celebrate, the more victories that you allow and encourage your children to have, the easier it is for them to develop and sustain a momentum that then can be applied to any type of goal. Okay, so this is a skill set that you all are working on together, that you are helping teach them rather, and that you can use this as your worksheet to do that. So with the guide, Teach Kids How to Use Progress Maps, you go and get this at mapyourprogress.com. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to comment below. I will absolutely go back and answer them. And tell me the stories. Take pictures. Oh my God, I love it when you guys take pictures of your super cute kids with the progress maps. It's just adorable. So send me all the photos and tell me all the things. And certainly if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at trackgoals@mapyourprogress.com, and happy to answer questions. All right, guys.